we have two amazing design firms here from Chicago. And I just really love you both. So I'm so excited we're all here together. What's really funny is Devin and I, we met first, and then I met Marley, and you both kind of told me your stories. And I saw so many similarities that I'm like, this is crazy. We have to do a podcast where we can get everyone together. And being the month of February and kind of like the month of love and relationships, I thought it would be cool to do it now. So first, I'm going to have you each kind of introduce yourself. So first, we'll have Devin Grace Interiors. We have Devin and Michael Wegman. So you guys just want to kind of introduce yourselves, tell us how long you've been married, a little bit about your story. We'll get into more specifics about the firm. So if you just kind of want to introduce yourselves and kind of like how long you've been together, we'll go from there.
Yeah. All right. So we're Devin and Mike Wegman. I guess we've been together. We started dating in Boston after going to school together. We've been married for almost 3 years now. And yeah, we're currently living in South Loop. We're renovating our kind of dream next home in Lincoln Park right now, which is exciting. And
yeah, Devin started the business and I joined a couple years after she kind of got off the ground. Never something we anticipated doing, combining forces. Like it was, we'll get into it, I think, more later, but yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool. So you're going to be moving to Lincoln Park. How soon do you guys move? Is that a tough question?
Renovation is it's underway. It's expensive, as you can imagine. We didn't buy something that's ready to go. It's not in our blood. But we're hoping to be in there early summer.
Yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. That's great. Cool. Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, you guys. All right, now we have Rebel House and Marley Jones and another Michael Cruiser, two Michaels here. I told you their stories are very much aligned. So Marley and Michael, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about you guys?
All right, we've been together. We were trying to do the math before the call for like 13 years, married for 8. Okay. We have an 18-month-old son, which has made life as a working couple very interesting. What else can I say about us?
We live in Glencoe now. Started the business when we were living in the city, and then
we moved ourselves to a massive renovation in the North Shore. And then when COVID hit, we moved our business to the North Shore so we could be closer to the office.
Shorten that commute. So now we're in office in Winnetka now. So.
Oh my gosh, that's great. How'd you guys meet? I should ask the date story. I think that'll be fun.
We met in college, and then I moved out to the West Coast and started my career in design. And Mike, we joke, followed me out there and started
it's not that much of a joke. That's just what happened.
In sports broadcasting. He was doing a very different career before he joined Rebel House.
That's great. And can I tell the story, Marley? This is my favorite story.
No.
So our first Next Gen dinner that you were going to attend, it was so funny because I got a phone call from Michael, and he was like, "Hey, I'm really sorry. Marley's not going to be able to come tonight. She's actually in labor with her first child. So she's not going to come." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Michael, I don't think you should be calling me right now." Like,
like a true workaholic, I was dressed and ready to go with the stomach out to here, sitting in the entry of where we were staying at a condo because we were renovating our house. We did everything at once. I don't recommend that. And yeah, I was neighbor. Yeah. So I didn't make it to the dinner.
It was just the cutest Next Gen story. I'm like, it's okay, Michael. This is a big moment. You guys should go. And it was funny because it was at a House of Roll studio that night. So I was joking with Zach Griffith of House of Roll. I'm like, we almost had like our first baby delivered at a network Next Gen dinner in the bathtub. Like something crazy could happen. So I'm glad it happened before and it wasn't during, Marley.
You actually don't know how close, because at first she was like, I'm not feeling well. I'm not sure if I should go. And I'm like, well, maybe you want to. It'll be fun. And I was like trying to encourage her to go. And she's like, no, I really don't think I should go. And then 45 minutes later, I was like, thank God you're not sitting down.
45 minutes later, we were on the way to the hospital. So it was good I wasn't there.
I still consider your next or your little one a next gen baby though, just so you know. It's like, this is our next gen baby. She almost And what is your little one's name, boy or girl?
He's a boy and his name is Lauren, which is really confusing for a lot of people.
I love that. That's so exciting. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. So I'm going to take it back to Devin now. Devin, how did you get started in design? Both of the women here started first. So Devin, can you talk a little bit about design, your career, how you got started? And then also like how you decided to start your firm, especially being next gen. There's so many people thinking about it if they haven't already. So yeah, I'll have you get started with that.
Yeah, I started early on, I guess. I was always kind of creative when I was younger. So I started in high school working at a family friend's architecture firm after school, just kind of getting my toes wet, and I fell in love with it from there and went to school in Boston for architecture. And while I was there, the school that we both went to, Northeastern, has kind of a co-op program where you take 6 months off and you go work at a full time and kind of really get an immersive experience in the industry. So I worked at a few firms in New York and Boston, and during that time kind of realized that I wanted to pivot a little bit towards interior design. So after graduating, I went to grad school for interiors, and then again, kind of worked at a few different firms to just feel like the small firm feel, the larger firm. Ultimately, I followed Mike out to Chicago to work.
I won that battle.
Yeah. So I moved out here and got a job at Perkins & Will, where I was working more on corporate interiors. And I loved the experience there. I loved, everyone that I was working with. It was a really great opportunity, but ultimately I just wanted to kind of get back to a more intimate relationship with design, I guess, and working more in residential. So that was when I kind of took the plunge and started working on my own, quit at Perkins & Will, and then just kind of took it from there, grew it from there. So
that's awesome. And Devin, we met actually because Katie Callahan, who's a rep in Chicago, introduced us when you were like just thinking about making the jump, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And you were just starting this too, right? It was like around the same time. We were both like about to quit our jobs. It was a fun dinner.
And we're both like, do you know what you're doing? And you're like, no. And I was like, do you know what you're doing? I'm like, absolutely not. And we're like, let's just do it. So it's been fun.
It's worked out for both of us.
Like, it's just been cool to think back to that dinner when we had no idea what was happening, and probably still don't, but we had our idea. That's great. And Marley, what about for you?
I graduated college in a recession. Job market was really bad. So I looked at pursuing interior design, which is what I always wanted to do. I just didn't have the guts for it in undergrad. So I went out to San Francisco to get my master's in interior architecture and design. San Francisco really because I wanted a change of scenery and I wanted to be out on the West Coast. And it was a great decision because the market out there was still doing well. I worked for some incredible designers, one of which brought me up from working as an intern to a senior designer in her firm. I moved really quickly. She taught me everything that she knew. It was fantastic. And if you're familiar with the Bay Area, you know that it's wonderful in all ways except for affordable housing. Mm-hmm. So when we started talking about maybe we want to get married, maybe we want to have kids one day, maybe it'd be nice to live in more than 500 square feet, we realized we should probably look at moving back to Chicago. So I got a job working for a real estate investment company that was launching a boutique line of hotels. And I came on as their senior designer. I was one of 3 hires running the design of this line of hotels. And it was amazing. I learned so much and loved every second of it, but I was getting calls to do residential design like crazy now that I'm back in Chicago, and ended up making a tough call to open my own business in 2015, 2016, and just go out on my own. And then what was really incredible was my contacts working in hotel design started calling, and we started getting jobs doing hospitality work as well. So yeah.
That's very cool. I love that. All right, cool. So now we're going to transition now, which is a great word for this podcast. So the Michaels, it's your turn. So eventually the Michaels both jumped on to, the plan and joined the businesses, which I think is just such an interesting just transition. So we'll start with Michael Wegman. Can you tell us a little bit about like your experience transitioning on, like, how did you make that decision? And like, specifically, when did you know it was the right time? And like, I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on that.
Sure. So yeah, my background had nothing to do with interior design. Naturally, when Devin started her own business, we would talk about it endlessly at night, challenges she was facing, client relation, challenges and monetary things. My background is actually in consulting. I had like an engineering degree, and I would consult for large businesses to implement like new technologies. I actually worked for Autodesk prior to joining Devin, so at least there was some translation between the CAD dinosaur industry and some of that we're using in our business today. But I used to have to travel every week, like Monday to Thursday, for this job, and I did it for many years, and it was great. It's what brought us to Chicago. But at the same time that Devin was really starting to get her feet under her and getting insanely busy, I was like exhausted of traveling all the time. And the big moment was she came and said, "Hey, I want to open an office. Like, I need an office space." And my whole mentality is like, you need a business case. Show me that you can make sense of it financially. so she like immediately put together the most like impressive business case for this thing ever.
The first and only time I ever did it.
Time she like really got organized financially. It was like, I never thought, normally that's kind of my role, personally and professionally. And she just like killed it the moment that it meant, oh, I might get an office if I can prove the business case. And then I looked a little deeper into this. I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. I'm going to quit my job and join onto this thing and see if we can really make it grow. So that was actually the big moment, is when she made a business case for her business. I got really interested and compelled.
Yeah, I got an office and a partner.
Yeah, she got an office and a partner.
I wish we could see that night. Did you like set it up where you like meet me at the dining room table at 6 o'clock? We're getting like, how'd you do it?
I was like so informal with it. I was as surprised as he was. I was like, I think this is actually like something. And he didn't believe me at first and like ran through it, and it was actually
I happened to have like blown my knee out at the same time. So I was looking down the throat of like trying to figure out, how do I get to O'Hare for the next 2 months with like a cast, my knee in a cast. And then she presented, this thing, and I'm like, you know what? Let's take a leap. So yeah, that's kind of how it started, at least.
Wow. So did you quit right then and there, or did you do kind of like an ease-in process, or how did that work?
We thought about it. I was kind of the breadwinner at the time. So it was a really scary move. We kind of like looked at finances and we're like, okay, so let's assume this does terribly.
Well, we were also not married at the time. We were engaged. Okay. So our families were terrified. They wanted us to get married first, and everyone thought it was a bad idea.
Terrible idea. We looked at like, hey, let's say this does terribly. Can we live for a year and a half on what we have? And the answer was like, yeah, okay, we can. And so, yeah, we made the move, and frankly have not looked back since. It was the right decision for sure.
So you were like planning a wedding and planning a business, kind of like all at one time. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, cool. Marley, what about for you guys? Michael, how did you make the jump into Rebel House?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, there's similarities in the sense that, the industry that I was in wasn't specifically related. And like, I was in sports media, I was a producer. The one big similarity is that working in sports is a nights and weekends kind of gig. It's a passion industry, similar to interior design in that sense, where the people that make it are people that are willing to put a lot into it. So in that sense, I wasn't sure what this was going to look like, if this was going to be, I was thinking about moving into marketing or moving into a different industry that would allow me a little bit more work-life balance, which is funny, I ended up doing this, but,
no work-life balance.
but at the same time that I was looking at making a change, you know, Marley's company is taking off. She's incredibly busy. You know,
Similarly, we had just landed our first office space. Friends of mine were like, you've got to get an office space. You need to get, you know, I was working out of my house and I had employees coming to the house and they were like, get out of your house, get the office space. Like my friends were like pushing me out to do it. And I'm like, this seems really scary. And then at the same time, I'm like, I also kind of think I need somebody to help me run the business because I'm literally working all day. And then I'm working into like the early morning hours, just managing the business, placing orders, like organizing the finances, doing all of the accounting. It was so intense. And then Mike started helping me. And I was like, well, this is great. This is a lot better. And then the two of us were spending nights doing stuff. And then it was like, if there's anyone that I'm going to choose to trust to help me run this business, it's like the person I'm spending my life with. Like, how could, like, if you're going to take a risk on anybody, that makes a lot of sense.
It's so beautiful.
A big risk, but a lot of people call us and they're like, we want to work together. And we're like, well, we could tell you the highs and lows.
Oh my God.
I'm sure Devin and Michael can too, but yeah, it was,
I'd be interested if it's the same for you guys. I think it does take, like, you really do. I feel like even before we were working together, we did everything together. Like, I feel like some couples are wired one way where it's like, you know, some people totally makes sense, like need separate things and space, and like that's how they operate. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. You know, we have separate rooms in the house kind of thing, which totally works. We're just people that it's like
probably healthier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe codependent is what I'm looking for, but like the sense that if you like we would choose to spend so much time together. So it's like working. It's not like it's not like it was a big problem or that we get sick of each other, things like that. I wonder if it's the same, if you guys are wired similarly.
Yeah, that's really well said.
Yeah, it's we've talked to a couple people about this, and the thing that stuck with me is Amy and Aaron, like Galvin, they run Luxury Living. It's like a big they're a husband-wife team. They built a big company. And they said, like, you're either the couple that has, like, the DNA to do it or not. There's, like, no in between because it's such a ridiculous commitment. You know, so many people say, I can't imagine that. We'd be fighting all the time. It would never work. And I just think it just depends on your relationship. But, we're lucky. Luckily, it seems so far like we're the group that can do it. And clearly you guys are, too. So I think we lucked out there.
Doesn't mean you're not fighting all the time.
Yeah,
it just means
I don't know about you guys.
I mean, like, it depends on your definition of fighting all the
time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot that it's a high stress business. Things are moving really fast. You're in charge of a lot of financial decisions and a lot of timelines, and it's coming at you from all angles. And when it's coming at all angles during the day, and then you go home and there's no transition, right? You're still together, and that becomes dinner, and that becomes like the things you say to each other right before you go to sleep. Like, you know,
so true.
Or I'm like literally texting him in the middle of the night being like, man, we have to remember about this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
I know. It's just intense. It's like in all sense of the, in every aspect. It's just such an intense thing.
Oh my gosh. So Devin and Michael, maybe I'll transition to you guys and ask, so like, how do you split the responsibilities then? Like, would you say that splitting the responsibilities was like, it sounds like it was kind of a natural thing for you guys, but like, how did you decide like what responsibilities are split, or are you guys kind of doing everything together? I think like that would be interesting in case people are trying to figure out the structure of that kind of thing.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit when we were considering this move. Luckily, our skill sets couldn't be more different. Devin is a creative genius. She has a tremendous, awesome technical background, obviously, as it relates to, architecture, construction, all these things. In my background, I am so not creative, so much to the point that I could never start a company the way she did, bootstrapping it. I'm too risk averse. I'm just not creative enough to do that. But luckily, she.
But Mike brings the operational, when he came on board, I think your first few months were just filtering all the.
I was cleaning up some mess.
Yeah.
Obviously, I came from business ops, optimization background. I go into other companies and help them be more efficient and streamline processes and, set up automation things or just ways to organize information better, which usually isn't a trait that comes with super creative people like Devin. So just naturally, those two paths help, those two differences in skill sets helped us create really clear swim lanes, which I think that's really important because if we're butting heads on the same decisions, then we're not adding that much value by working together. If it's just two heads constantly obsessing over this same decision.
Well, and it's also helped evolve naturally as we've grown and the team has grown. Now we each manage different teams. So I manage the creatives and the designers, and Mike manages the finance and the project management team. And so that just kind of naturally evolved into our company structure, which has been really helpful too. So.
I love that. Very cool. Mike and Marley, what about for you guys?
Yeah, I'd say it's similar in the sense, that Marley can do every part of this. She and Devin, I'm sure Devin's the exact same way. They started this business, they could have hired someone to help take things off their plate, but Marley's good at every single part of this, but we know in the marketplace where we're going to be differentiated is the creative. So, and that's obviously what drove her to have a successful business in the first place. So it's really, everything is geared around how do we free up her time to focus on that, where she can differentiate and make something amazing and really service our clients, both from a client service and then just directly creative. And then on my end, it's similar thing, organizing, project managing, dealing with accounting and the finances part of the equation. And
he does everything. And then where I think we have a funny setup in our office is that he also
has opinions.
He has opinions. So our staff will make fun of him because it's he sometimes they're great and they're gold and it's really exciting. Our clients love him, which is also funny because they want to talk to him, and he is a good point of contact. He's the first person our clients talk to when they call us to talk about working together, and he's the person they talk to if they have any questions, any accounting questions, any delivery questions. It really runs through him as the face of the business, and that keeps me being the face of the creative, which is a revolutionary change, so that I'm not the face of some of the uglier things. And he's much more calm, and then I would say in a different way from Devin and Mike, I am more risk adverse and more should we do this? Is this a good idea? I will take the risk, but I will also have to get really comfortable with it. He's super laid back and keeps the energy and the flow and keeps my intensity down, because I'll come in like a tornado and then probably scare the crap out of everybody in our office, and then he'll come in with a big smile on his face and be much more calm and relaxed. So we're like a yin and yang, I would say, in terms of how we handle everything.
I love that. I love that. Okay. This is a deep question that I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just curious about it. So hopefully you guys are cool if I ask this, and if it's offensive, let me know. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I think one of the questions that I think is amazing. Even just listening to you guys talk about each other, it's so beautiful, you guys, because you're both like you're all four very like humble and like very putting your partner first, and that just means you have great relationships, I'm sure. But especially for the guys, was it hard for you in any capacity to like kind of like, especially at the beginning, come like under your wife's firm, even though you're partners? Does that make sense? I don't know. Like, I feel like some guys I know would have an ego problem with this. And so it sounds like you both operate very much as a partnership now. But specifically at the beginning, was that a source of tension or was it not really an issue?
Michael, I'd love to start.
I will
the
say,
question is so relevant.
You talk about this.
The way, and I'm really curious to hear what you say too. Again, I feel like it's in some ways it's a wiring thing. Like what I like, what I enjoy, even like back to like playing sports and things like that. Like I liked being the person that played the support role to lead to success. Like I didn't need to be the star. That's not important to me if we're having like team success. So in a lot of ways, like I feel like she's the star player, and that like
I needed to be the star.
and like that's I like doing that. So, and from that sense, it's not. And I mean, again, that becomes like a constant joke all the time that like she's the boss and like.
It's funny, like we had a lot of, and I'll be curious to know if this is a similar situation again. We had a lot of friends at the beginning, and they were kind of like, "That's weird," or like a little bit judgmental of the setup, and then add some time to it, and we've been successful. And I think people have really changed their tune, and now we get phone calls from people being like, we want to do the same thing, and we're like, okay, well, it's actually really hard.
Not a huge
out of you, but it's interesting how people's perceptions of it have changed. And I think definitely it's an interesting question, because I think it's hard when people kind of wrap their heads around it for the first time.
Interesting. I love that.
I love the question.
Yeah, no, it's a great
I think the question is great because I really had to check my ego at the door because I used to be the public speaker in my previous job. I was a consultant. I was on panels all the time, and then I'm like, and my friends would make fun of me, and I support them. I jump on the bandwagon. It's like now I'm a professional, pillow fluffer. So it's like it was something you just have a pill you have to swallow and just say, you know what, it doesn't matter. Devin is the face. The name is attached to her. Everyone associates her with the company, the brand, everything. But I'm more than happy and excited about that because it does take two to get to the size that we've gotten to. And I'm now the support role behind the scenes, dealing with the clients in different ways that are helping, make this thing run. And I think in the early days is when it was really a little kick, if you will, just like literally calling customer service of places when it was just me and her. Like that was a big transition from what I was doing previously. But now I get to think a little more strategically. I get really excited for my 2 or 3 presentations a year to the team when we're talking about strategy or how we're doing as a company financially. It's because it's a lot less than what I used to be able to do. But
I think the only time it was ever someone really shone a light on it was when you were quitting your job and actually turning down a job offer at the time. And the guy that had offered him the job he put it into, he was like, well, I want to warn you against that. I worked for my wife back in the day. And then he's like, I just want to check with you. What are you going to do when she has kids? And that, as soon as we heard that, we were both just we're doing this. That is so ridiculous. It was so, it was just so antiquated. And it's.
Yeah, it was hard to explain to people. It was definitely hard to explain to people. But now it's not hard to explain to people at all.
Yeah, I think, Marley, the way you put it, that people's perception changes with time is interesting because you don't even notice it happening. And but it really does. As you kind of prove yourself. as a company.
The other thing, like Mike was saying too, that like triggered something for me is how hard it is to go from being really good at a job that you know everything about, you know, that you like busted your ass to get to the point that you're at, to then switch industries. And like, that's an ego check for anyone. Like you go from like knowing everything, how to do everything, to like learning, you know, making mistakes, having to check with Marley, am I doing this right? Is this correct? When like all you want to be is like a contributing member to the team, like that. Anyone considering doing this, especially coming from a different industry, know that like that like onboarding ramp up period is like really hard on your ego. That's for sure.
Yeah. And you know, Mike, now we know a thing or two about plumbing rough-ins and sofa fabric and window treatment. So you know, I hate to say it, but I have some strong opinions now.
Very strong.
Very hard to bite my tongue during review meetings.
Yeah, there you go. There's the creative weigh-in that I'm talking about. You can't avoid it.
That's so good.
No.
So interesting. I feel like I now want to interview like people who are both in the like started in the industry, like 2 architects or 2 designers. But I've heard that those, and this is general statement, are less successful. But I wonder if there's something to that when you transitioned, you were also learning like the whole industry. I feel like there might be something to that helped make it go kind of smoother and more successful. I don't know. I'm curious about that. But it's interesting that people's perceptions changed as you just proved it worked. Like you were right. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I also think it's an industry that is like really ripe for you know, a little like improvement in certain areas, because most of the businesses, most businesses are still run by purely creative thinkers, right? And not necessarily folks who bring a little more organization and thoughtfulness to the really boring stuff that no one really cares about outside of, you know, maybe the client. But so yeah, I think that too is just an interesting opportunity.
So interesting. Okay, you guys, this is a fun one. What has surprised you the most about working together? Devin and Michael, maybe we start with you, or Michael and Marley, whoever wants to jump in.
I can start. I think the thing that surprised me the most when we were like thinking about this, it's like such a huge risk that you're taking. And when you think about the pros would be, the business grows and that we're successful and this is all great. And I think one of the biggest pros that nobody really sheds light on as much is our personal relationship grew a lot too, because before doing this, you know, we're in separate industries, we're working all day, and we don't fully understand what the other person does. And, you know, we would try to talk about it, but it's like, it's work, you know, leave it at the door, talk about other things. And kind of the beautiful thing I think that came out of this is that now we've kind of learned this whole new side to each other. And someone described it to me as like, it's like you're moving in together all over again when you start working together, because all of a sudden you're learning like how this person is on work emails and on calls and dealing with clients and how they work day to day, which you don't necessarily see if you're not working together. And I at least, like, I think we both have, but I've just grown such a huge sense of respect for the way that Mike handles so many things, and it, you know, applies to so many other areas of our life as well. So that was kind of, I think, the biggest surprise for me is like, it was successful in a professional sense, but it also was a huge, strengthener, I think, in our personal relationship as well, which wasn't as expected. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cute. Mike,
I
that
mean,
was a good answer. So
yeah, I think two surprises were one that it worked. Like we got a puppy, we're doing great. It's awesome. Like I couldn't believe it. That was a surprise. But also watching Devin grow her skill sets from when it was she was a designer, right? That's what she started the business as, a designer. And now she's a manager of several people, a manager of several creatives. And it's a skill set that definitely didn't come natural to her initially, but now she can do it better than me, better than anyone I can, you know, think of. And I'm just so surprised that she turned from creative to a true businesswoman, business manager, kick butt, kick ass, boss lady, owner. And that only happened in about a year's time too.
That's amazing. That's so cool. All right, Michael and Marley, what about you guys?
I think I'd love to touch on something you said there, in the sense that like I think there's less of a gap. I think that creative mindset is like, we like to say like left brain and right brain, right? Like we like to break this into like, there's like business and there's creative kind of thing. And it's funny to hear you talk, Michael, because it feels like I see the same thing in Marley, where it's like that the ability to think creatively and passionately, it really translates across skill sets. Like once you break down the idea that like, I'm not good at this, or like, this is not something I'm supposed to be good at, or, you know, whatever that might be, that like, you know, Marley flourishes like at anything she's gonna like apply herself to, which is crazy. I mean, that's like, obviously I was in love with her when I got married to her and all that kind of stuff, but like working together is like insane to see like how much she knows about how many things. And that's inherent in the industry. Like the good ones, like, you know, if you're, whether it's like Mike was saying, you're talking about the plumbing roughs to the window treatment details, to different species of wood, to like finishes, to just like, you know, any part of the industry that we run into, and all the myriad of applications that we have, because projects can be so different depending on, you know, what their needs are. Like she knows like the standards, what it's supposed to be, like, you know, the baseline to build off of, the rules, right? Because if you know the rules, that's when you can break them successfully. And that's wild to see like how much information like she has to retain and does on a consistent basis.
That's awesome. Very nice of you. Guys, this is just a big love fest.
I know.
What do you think, Marley? What surprised you about Michael?
I think we made the decision, I think, out of necessity, and then it just became something that streamlined our lives in a lot of ways, down to even like running our household, having a baby, so many things that like where we would have been kind of working parallel to each other, now we're really enmeshed. And there's a chaos to it just naturally when you're running a business. Add in a house, add in a baby, it's
add in a baby.
really crazy. And like he's like, I think similar to what Devin was saying, like I didn't really know what he did as a television producer. I knew he was successful at it. I didn't know like how much he was able to really manage and think quickly and keep his calm, and that's been incredibly applicable to our day-to-day lives and at our office and for our staff. And like he'll just do the hard work and nobody knows about it. Like he said about not needing to be like the star, he really will, like he will take the garbage out. I think he is the only one. See, I'm even questioning it. I don't really know who's taking the garbage out. I'm pretty sure it's just him. And then he'll also handle like, you know, onboarding potential clients and dealing with like some really complicated things all within the day. And then he'll also sit down with our employees and organize them and be like, all right, let's talk through your deliverables for the week and for the month. He sat me down today and like talked through all of our meeting schedules because it's crazy. And like, he's just thinking in what he likes to say in 3D. He's always thinking about things on this, I think more complex level where I'm just like really monofocused and like, okay, like, what are we producing? And then how that production is done, like it's really been wildly applicable in ways that I don't think I realized going into this.
What's really fun was that the four of us, everyone made the jokes at the start of the pandemic that like they didn't realize their partner was a circle back to it. You know what business lingo they use on their calls.
Yeah.
Like we figured that out a little while ago and had to
yeah, like what everybody's gone through in this pandemic, I think all of us have had to deal with over the last few years and been like, this is what it's like.
It's true. That's true.
Awesome, guys. Well, I think we'll close by this question. Tips. Any tips on partnering with a spouse in business in this specific industry? Anything you've learned that you would say is key? Like this is my biggest tip. If you have a few, if you have a handful, I know you've learned a lot, so you probably have a ton of tips. But just any tips you've learned that maybe you did wrong or you wish you would have known before. Like if someone's thinking, you guys both said that people come to you already and kind of have played with the idea or curious how you make it work. So we'll end with that. Just each of you guys, if you guys want to just give out your best tips, we'll kind of make a list and be able to share that with people then.
Yeah. I'll start. I would say, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I would define your swim lanes before you get way into the thick of it. So that way, if there's ever a situation where you might be taking two different positions or opinions on something, ultimately, you need that moment where you could say, hey, this is my swim lane, this is my department, so my word wins today. So we rarely run into those situations, luckily. But I think it's really important because you're going to have all sorts of life issues that you disagree on that you're managing day to day. If you layer on like business issues that you disagree on day to day, you're disagreeing on a lot of things day to day. So it can really help. It can really help to just put some definition to like, hey, these are my responsibilities, and if push comes to shove, I'm ultimately the decision maker for this, swim lane.
Yeah.
And in that same vein, I think like having a partnership agreement, right? Like just like formalizing it, like having it in paper, like how it works, like the breakdown, like all that's really important because like, having a foundation, having like, it's important and it's having each other's backs before anything ever goes wrong, right? Because like if anything ever did go wrong, you want to have it really clear about like what that looks like, and that's just the right foundation to start anything like that. And I think that's really simple.
That's a good point.
You don't want to be figuring that out at the heat of the moment. Yeah. You want to figure it out at the beginning.
That gives me anxiety. Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Devin, what about you? Tips?
I feel like so many people gave us advice like when we were starting out, and I feel like a lot of like my tip is probably like very cliche, but just like, I don't know, make sure there are going to be so many areas where your work life and your personal life just blend and the lines blur, and it's so hard to separate them and kind of keep things apart. So definitely you do have to definitely work hard at still maintaining a romantic relationship and like turning work off. And, it's really hard to do. Like if we go out for dinner, we want to talk about work and we want to, it's just kind of what naturally comes up. But if you let that kind of take control, it is going to be all you guys talk about, and it kind of just control. It won't control, but it'll really become a huge part of your relationship. So you have to almost make more of an effort to fit in some romantic, go out on dates and, don't talk about work, and I don't know.
We haven't figured out how
We're working on it.
So great.
Valentine's Day dinner, we were like, no work talk. And then like,
we lasted like 25 minutes, I think.
That's great. Marley, what about for you? Tips?
All of these are great tips. So in not repeating all of that, I think I would say if you're thinking about going into a business partnership with your partner, you have to do it really clear-headed and know that it's going to be, I think, a really intense life decision. And you can't just expect that it's going to be happy and friendly and nice all the time. And you have to work on your communication skills and how you deal with conflict. Because I think, as we've all echoed, it's ripe with conflict. There are so many things that are testing you on a daily basis, from just, employee issues like to COVID issues, to how are you running your office, to, budgets. And there's so many, every single thing, I think every piece of this is an opportunity for you to either work together or work against each other. And then you have to come home together. It's like, not like, you have to be able to really like know that your relationship has to take precedence and you have to take care of each other. And that clear-headedness needs to be at the forefront. That like, otherwise I think you lose it really early on. It's too much to balance. It's a very intense thing to do, and you do have to really like your partner. Like you got to really want to be around each other all the time.
Marley,
Like, we're good with, like literally like being together constantly.
Yeah, I'd say the highs are super high, but the lows are really freaking low. So,
and you're both depressed about the same thing. It's not like we talk about
that too.
What killed both of us. Like also, then there's
the difference when you're doing different jobs is you're riding different roller coasters.
Yeah, like
right?
you can
So,
build
like,
each other up.
Mike might have come home from a job at Autodesk here, but Devin's here, so like she's okay picking him up. And like when you're in the ride together, you're both in that valley, and it's a lot harder to be like, hey, we're gonna get through this.
Yeah, like one of you has to rise to the occasion. Yeah. So, and then, like you said, things are really good. It's amazing, but you have to kind of count on knowing that you're going to get tested a lot. And that's the stuff that I think people maybe don't want to think about with a lot of complexity, because it's almost like having kids. Like you don't know until you do it. Like you can think about it in theory, but like the day to day is just so different. So it's a big decision.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, cool. I love the roller coaster and the swim lanes. I'm like, those are two really good. You guys are really speaking. The non-creatives are really speaking creatively. I like it. All right, guys. Well, I guess I'll give you each just kind of a moment if you have any final thoughts or anything you guys want to say, just in general, like either to each other or to just the Next Gen crew, whatever you guys want to say. So that's open-ended.
I have a question for you guys. How has it been transitioning to parenting now too?
I mean,
they just start laughing.
Actually, I'll let you talk about it. But
I mean, what's amazing is that like it really does become the thing that can compete with work, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like a weird. Like before, it's like, if you wanted to do something else, at times you come back to it's like, yeah, but we love what we do, and that you kind of end up gravitating back towards work. And like with Lo, our Lo around, that's an easy competition where we can put things away and be like focused on something other than work, which is super cool and really fun. But yeah, it's also a lot.
Yeah, I think as like a self-proclaimed workaholic, and I think we all are, to run a business, I did not think I would want to do something else with my time other than work. Like I could work constantly and it makes me so happy. Raising a child, even in like the hard times, like I think it's even just biological, like I would clear my whole schedule. And you can't really when you own a business. So that's a big tension. Like I took a couple weeks of maternity leave, which is a whole other podcast network Next Gen discussion.
I was gonna say,
I think I got like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So. Yeah. So, it was at a time in our business where it was really, really busy, and, it just happened that way. But you don't have to do it that way. Yeah. But yeah, I think having a child it changes your priorities, even if you think it never would. And that's something when you run a business it's a conflict sometimes, but ultimately really great.
That's great. Any other questions you guys have for each other?
I mean, I just know, like from our perspective, like we are in the same world and we see each other from time to time at events, but like it's fun to sit down and talk with you guys, because I know from a distance, like we have so much respect for what like the DGI team does. You guys have grown so much. Like how has that been? I mean, seeing like you guys have your awesome new office space, and it seems like you guys have like a new team member every few months. It's incredible.
We are very excited about our office space that's collecting dust.
We used it for 3 months.
It's like the challenge we have with the office space and hiring as many people as we have is it's just not a great environment for COVID. We kind of packed everyone in, and
it's also in the loop.
It's in the loop, so taking public transit is a challenge. But I will say honestly, the biggest challenge our business has faced since we talk to you guys is onboarding new people with this being our means of communication and doing it. It is tough. It's really tough. Yeah.
Because
we're figuring it out.
Why is it? Is it because you don't feel that connection? Is it too much to explain, or like the vibe?
It's just, I think when we're all in the office together, there's such an organic, like you just overhear things, you just learn, you just pick up things from other people, and it's so much easier for our, we hired 7 new people during COVID, and they haven't worked in the same space together. So it's like, they don't know each other. I mean, they've gotten to know each other, thankfully, but like in the beginning, it's a lot harder for them to get to know their coworkers. And like, if we're in the office, it's a lot easier to just.
Yeah, like just when senior people are on the phone talking to the client, dealing with an issue, and that other person's like next to them, they just hear it, right? They can learn. Whereas now we have to have like scheduled kind of, collaboration, and it's not as organic. It doesn't happen as quickly. But we're not the only company facing this issue.
Yeah.
So we figured it out, and we're actually continuing to work on it with some software to help us perhaps better communicate. But yeah, that's been one challenge for sure.
Well, do you guys have a question for Marley and Michael, or no?
Just parenting. I mean, that's really
that was a big question. Actually.
I didn't realize you guys. I didn't realize you guys moved your office, I guess, to the suburbs, so to speak. Like, it looks amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
We're seeing pictures and we're just like drooling. I can't wait for like the full tour someday. But did you guys feel like you have enough space for, I guess, working conditions and future growth and things like that with the space out there?
We can't probably operate at the capacity we would want to, or like the space was maybe designed to have a ton of employees in. We're still a really small team, so it's been easier for us to have people in the office. I mean, honestly, with everything that's going on, it's just not been possible for everybody to be in the office at the same time, even if we really wanted to. But I think, we've definitely adapted the design of the space to try and make it a healthier environment with air purifiers and people distanced and like desks like that, hand sanitizer stations, the whole thing. It's kind of crazy. And then you want to keep it beautiful because we're also on ground level with windows on the street so people can see us working. So it's been an interesting challenge. But
it's fascinating to think through and to make this decision and process it. I feel like even seeing your guys' office to some degree, I know you had posted on stories about some of the client presentations you had there, and like we just weren't set up for that in our city place. It just wasn't going to work, and I think that always felt like a great opportunity to bring those clients into a space that can be immersive for you, right? Like that there's different applications of things that we've done in this space. We have plaster on the walls that we've been able to bring clients through and be like, this is a great treatment for
and
you.
They can touch it, like that makes a huge difference. Or opening cabinets or feeling what real marble feels like on the countertops. That is a substantial difference. And it's just how we're operating now is keeping it really small and intimate, which I imagine will be the case as we continue. I mean, we've had issues with growing our team just because, I'm so impressed you've been able to grow 7 people virtually. That's incredibly difficult. I've been really hesitant to add to our workforce, not knowing, how we're physically looking at, we're a physical business. How do we communicate all of that?
Yeah, it definitely is challenging. It's a different, we've just had to kind of come up with a different way to operate almost.
It is a different mindset. In my previous job, I have been working from home. Like everyone's like, oh,
this has always been
working from home for like 6 years, prior to me changing to work with Devin. So I've got a couple tips and tricks. We should get a virtual drink someday, maybe. you guys tell us about your war stories. We'll tell you about ours.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. All right, guys. Well, I think we'll kind of hear. I know you guys could definitely talk all night because you have so much in common.
Tara's like, wrap it up, guys. I gotta get out of here.
I just want to respect the time because we're getting close to 6 here. So we'll have to do a round 2, and maybe it's about parenting or something like that, or just even just business dynamics. But thanks for letting me ask you guys all those questions. And I was just pumped for you guys to get together because I knew you guys have so many good synergistic like vibes and things happening. So
thanks for organizing.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I miss seeing everyone at events, where this kind of convo would happen naturally. Now we literally have to set it up or it doesn't happen. Maybe we'll just keep setting up little dates with other people so that we can all see each other. So, well, thanks for being a part, and I'm sure I'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.